Hello, this is the second episode of Born in Quarantine. I have some tea in my Batman mug because we are going to talk about two very British subjects: a Frenchman and an alien. Truth be told, I am a very big fan of both Star Trek and Doctor Who. I've been a Trekkie for a long part of my life. That was cringy. And unlike most people, I actually like the original series over the Next Generation because I like the crew of the original series better. I don't like Captain Kirk, but I like Spock, I like Sulu, I like Chekhov. I like all of them. And Doctor Who has been very recent for me. I started watching the series in 2016 when Peter Capaldi was the Doctor, and I've been a fan ever since. I watched quite a lot of both of them, and I love both of them, and both of them are not in a very good place now. These two shows, even though they are very different, are quite similar. Both started in the 60s, both had a very optimistic point of view. So yeah, both of these shows were very similar in a very weird way. I guess it makes sense that both of them are having the same problems. Let's talk about them in separation first. Star Trek. Star Trek, for those of you who don't know, started in 1966 with a vision of a man named Gene Roddenberry. In his vision, Earth, in very far future, for him and for us for that matter, got rid of a lot of its problems. Poverty, racism, sexism, all of that gone, and mankind managed to unite and go into the space to explore, met with alien races, trade with them, learn from them, and now all of them are going to explore this vast universe and learn more about it.
To explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
It was discovery. Not that discovery, a better discovery. For better or worse, it had a very optimistic point of view about the future. Earth is better now. We don't have a lot of the problems that plagued us back then in the 1960s and now in the 2020s. But we still had to deal with the same issues, but not inside the Earth. Racism existed, but amongst other alien races. Then came the Next Generation, a really good show. In the Next Generation, we realized that everything might not be as good as Gene Roddenberry originally wanted. The Earth was still cool, the universe was still optimistic, but there were more problems. This time, problems were internal. It was more a battle of ideologies. Do you believe in this certain ideology? Do you believe in this certain action? It might better race, but it might destroy them. It was moral dilemmas, and that's what made Star Trek. When you go to watch a Star Trek episode, a good one from the older days, you look at it through a lens that gives you a very important question. What do you believe in? Do you believe in this very famous quote from Star Trek? The needs of a many outweigh the needs of a few, or the one. Do you believe in that? If you do, what action would you take? Now, see what actions these characters are taking, whether you accept them or don't. Then came Deep Space Nine, a very dark take on the Star Trek universe. Everything was bad, there was a big war going on, but Deep Space Nine, for its time, was a change of pace the universe needed. Everything was good on Earth, but the world outside of it was a bit more cruel. You couldn't just, close your eye on them. It was a good show for the time, but it set a bad precedent, I think I butchered that pronunciation, you tell me. It made us realize that, you can tell a darker story in the Star Trek universe and still do it good, which is an accomplishment in a world that is so optimistic and so lighthearted. You come and tell this kind of grounded, gritty, dirty story. I do not like to talk about these other Star Trek shows because I don't really care about them. I don't care about Voyager. I don't care about Enterprise. I really don't care about Enterprise. And the animated series, it's fun. If you like the original series, just watch it every now and then. It'll be over before you know it. Now, with Star Trek out of the way, let's talk about the other part of this episode, Doctor Who. Doctor Who, much like Star Trek, started with a very broad premise. There is this alien, he's a Time Lord, he has 2 hearts, and he's played by an angry old man, and he has a time machine. He can go to space and time. I was talking with a friend of mine who is also a huge Doctor Who fan, and he said the fact of the matter is, and it is true, Doctor Who started as an educational program for kids to show them, not tell them about these stories, but to show them what happened in the history of the humankind. But by accident, it became an opportunity for storytelling. It became a place where you can tell your stories using this universe as your base. The difference between Star Trek and Doctor Who comes to the single fact. Star Trek is about the universe, it's about the crew of a ship. Doctor Who is about the character of the Doctor, who is a very optimistic character. Justice wants, everyone lives. And he tried to show it to everyone. There's this quote in the episode Twice Upon a Time which says, life can't be a fairy tale, but sometimes you can make it one. And that's, in my opinion, the core of the Doctor Who. Doctor is an optimistic character. He tries to better himself and better the world around him by helping people. He wants to help these people. He wants to help Earth. For some reason, he wants to help Britain specifically. But bad joke. What? Come on. I'm full of them. Now, this character has a darker side. He has some darker moments. Sometimes, especially in the 7th Doctor era, he has some darker moments. But the matter of the fact is, he is a good character. He's optimistic. He helps because he knows there is a 1% chance that he can make everything better. Then Doctor Who got cancelled in the 1980s. There was a movie, and not a very good one. And then the show came back in 2005 by the hands of Russell T. Davies, this time with a major change. The universe of the Doctor was changed forever because of this event that happened sometimes between the 80s and 2005 called the Time War. Suddenly the race of the Doctor, the Time Lords, were no more. The Daleks apparently were no more. Daleks are the staple of Doctor Who. Suddenly this universe was changed, and yet the character of the Doctor stayed the same. The character of the Doctor had one major trait now. He was a soldier, but he was still trying to do better despite what he might have done. The first season was hit and miss. I do not like Christopher Eccleston for that matter. I really don't like him. There's this episode Dalek which I love, and he's good in it. I admit that, but I don't like him in general. Then Russell T. Davies went. Stephen Moffat took the reign after season 4 with the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith. I know I'm not doing a good job of explaining all of this, but it's because Doctor Who is very confusing to explain. You might get into it. I might do one later that I talk about different stuff in Doctor Who, but for now I'm sticking to the bare bones stuff because there is a bigger issue at hand here. Stephen Moffat had 2 Doctors under his reign, much like Russell T. Davies. The 11th Doctor, which is a good era. Season 5 is very good. I don't like him that much either. And the 12th Doctor, my favorite Doctor, Peter Capaldi, which I love. And during that time, a certain subject got brought up again, and that's what I want to talk about today. It started in the Russell T Davies era, but got to its peak in Steven Moffat era. Time Lords were not these overlords that sit outside of everything and were kind of trusted, somewhat like the Star Trek Confederation. They were these conniving villains that wanted to destroy Doctor. Okay, there is a lot of possibilities to go there. Steven Moffat didn't go there very much. Suddenly, the Time Lords were amongst the gallery of Doctor Who villains. Okay, it's not the worst thing out there, but much like Deep Space Nine, it set a bad precedent. And with that incredibly bad segue, we go into the era of cynicism. In contrast to earlier decades, earlier century, we live in a more cynical era. Cynicism is a perfect defense mechanism. You use cynicism to stop yourself from being hurt, because optimism, to have hope, is to be vulnerable. To believe that one day you might be able to get what you want, to be able to have a little bit of joy in your life, is opening yourself to be hurt. I should know I am an optimist by nature, and I've got hurt because of it a lot. So, cynicism is the easier route, and as a collective, the humankind decided that, well, we are going to be cynical, which is not a bad thing in and of itself, because, well, historically they are right. Cynicism is the way forward if you look at what comes before. Things progressively apparently got worse. I do not support that theory, but there is some merit to it. Things have gone worse in many areas. I mean, we are living in the middle of a pandemic right now, so cynicism obviously won. I do not believe in that, because there is always hope. Hope is what keeps us moving. You might call it delusion. Hope is what keeps us moving forward. If you don't have hope, you don't do anything. And that's where the era of cynicism, which we are living in now, takes a huge toll on light-hearted stuff that are trying to give you hope. Have you seen the Jim Carrey show Kidding? It's a show that's an allegory for Mr. Rogers and what he meant to the world. Now, one of my biggest issues with the show is that it mocks the optimism that Mr. Rogers had, as if you have optimism in the world that keeps bashing you, you are delusional and you are running from yourself. Whether that's true or not is another subject, and it does have some merit again. Yes, to not see the vast sea of emptiness and void that surrounds you is delusion. But to mock an optimistic point of view because it might be illusion is not better either. I'd argue that it is somewhat worse, because being optimistic is not a weakness, in my opinion, and I might be biased on it, but it's a strength, because you see all that is bad, but you look for those little moments that will rise you up. Kidding mocks that, and sadly that is the way the world of entertainment is now. Things are supposed to look bad because the world is apparently worse, and we need to feel bad because of it. That toll showed itself when entering two extremely optimistic universes. I don't like to point fingers at people and say, you did this, even though in both of these cases, there are two people you can really point them. They are very pointable. Alex Kurtzman and Chris Chibnall. But I'm not going to blame it all on them. I blame it on the current climate as well. These shows were based on optimism. They believed in the goodness of the human being. Stupid? Maybe. But that's what the universe was about. Then comes Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard, Doctor Who, seasons 11 and 12, with one very narrow vision. They want to shock you. When talking to my friend, we both sort of came upon this very notion that Doctor Who and Star Trek in their current climate are not Doctor Who and Star Trek. They are a cliched sci-fi show. One might say like The Expanse, not a bad show. The Boys, extremely good show. But neither of these shows are Star Trek or Doctor Who. They are stories about the bad parts of being a human, about bad parts of the human nature. Doctor Who and Star Trek were not about those parts. They were these optimistic properties. So where do they fit in? They don't. One way you could go is, well, keep them as they were. Doctor Who did it for the first 10 seasons with a bit of rise and fall. Star Trek was lost in 2009 with J.J. Abrams. But these worlds needed to stay this way because that's what they were. But they didn't. Suddenly, to imitate, to become the next big thing, they started to change and they started to become Expanse, The Boys, and a million other TV shows that had a negative outlook. Now, don't get me wrong. Most of these shows are not bad. Doctor Who and Star Trek in a darker universe is not a bad thing per se. One would argue both of these shows had successful darker episodes, series, storylines in the past, and you would be right. The reason they worked though was that they didn't change Doctor or the universe of Star Trek to shock you. What I'm saying is, imagine for a moment if Star Trek Discovery wasn't Star Trek, and Doctor Who season 11 and season 12 weren't Doctor Who. They were these new shows. Discovery, Police Box Time Machine. Would they work? I doubt it. Because both of these shows in their current climate are trying hard to prove to the audience that Confederation has always been this evil organization that allows a whole civilization die because of petty argument. And Time Lords were this conniving, evil race that took this kid that was spat out of another universe and made his Jesus-y thing into a source of income. The sole purpose of these is to shock you. Oh my God, look at this. Everything you knew was a lie. The line that was literally uttered by Master. Okay, you shocked us. Well done. What we do from here? You've created a world that is much like any other sci-fi show, second-rate sci-fi show. You've taken what makes these universes unique. And what did you give us? Barely anything to replace that. You want Doctor Who to be this dark, post-apocalyptic, dystopian story? But why? That wasn't what drove people in. One might say these series need to evolve, and you're right. But they have evolved. The first Doctor and the fourth Doctor live in completely different universes. They've evolved. But they still are the same character. The world of the Next Generation and the original series are very different. They've evolved. But they are still occupying the same universe. Because they did not try to shock you with pointless storylines. They wanted to tell a story in this universe. Another argument that I have is that you attract a lot of attention with doing this. That's true. Star Trek Discovery and Picard are saying we are talking about important issues that matter to the world we live in now. Doctor Who season 11 and 12 are literally hashtags, nothing more. They are talking about these important issues, but, well, Star Trek and Doctor Who have always talked about these issues. Star Trek has talked about racism. It has talked about poverty. It has talked about culture clash. Doctor Who has always talked about political statements that always talked about equality, but they did it in their own stories. They didn't sit down and sat the audience down and preached at them that yes, racism is bad. Well done, Mr. Chibnall. Well done, Mr. Abrams. Well done, Mr. Kurtzman. We did not know racism was bad until Doctor Who made Rosa. When you have a story and you have an issue in your mind and you combine them together in a clever way, you create something that helps you way beyond any other thing can. 12 Angry Men. It was easier for Sidney Lumet to write this long statement that stop believing that people are guilty from the get-go. Give them some doubt. Believe in the humankind. But he made 12 Angry Men. One can say the same thing for some other great stories that touched people. For Easy Rider. For 8.5. 8.5 is about midlife crisis. It's easier to explain midlife crisis, but it's harder, yet more powerful, to show it. Doctor Who and Star Trek in their current climate are not stories. They are hashtags, they are statements, they are nostalgia baiting too. I want to talk about the episode Fugitive of Judoon that had this character, Captain Jack Harkness, just for the fact that it can say it has this character, Captain Jack Harkness. It didn't help the story, it's fan service. And as we know, a good fan service is no fan service. This is what is disappointing about these shows now, and this is what has made me, which is a fan of both of these shows, to the extent that I have a Dalek figurine and a Spock figurine, and I would have put them here if I had them here. They're in another location, and well, I can't put them here. I don't have them. But I love these shows to this extent, and yet I can't bring myself to watch them anymore. They're new ones. I rather watch The Orville to get my Star Trek. I rather watch Final Space to get my Doctor Who. Because both of these shows remembered what the shows that they are ripping off forgot. It's better to be unique than to be shocking. Good thing is, Star Trek universe is strong enough and Doctor Who is forgivable enough that at some point I have the hope, which is something these shows want to crush, that they can get better. Picard wasn't the savior I was looking for. Season 12 of Doctor Who wasn't the savior I was looking for. But I have hope that one day we'll have these better stories. I might be wrong, cynicism might win again, but well, I'm not gonna let it destroy my optimism. Well, if that worked, I put the voice recorder here now, and that's my computer. That worked. I'll see you another time.